Charlie, why don't you introduce yourself and just tell us your name, your full name, and how old you are?
Charles D. Cunningham, 97,
97. Will you be 98 this year?
in November.
Ah, good. My birthday's in November. November the 8th.
I'm the 22nd.
The day Kennedy got shot.
They can be that.
Where were you living, Charlie, when you entered the military?
I was raised in South Carolina,
What city, or what were you near?
a little town crossroads named Liberty Hill.
Liberty Hill.
It had a post office, and that was it.
Were you was your family farmers? Were you in the farm?
Yes, we had a small farm. My dad was a local postmaster, so that took us through the Depression in good shape.
So you joined the military from South Carolina.
I joined the military from South Carolina in February of 1941.
Did your parents have any apprehension about you joining the military?
My dad signed, my mother was a little hesitant, but she signed and everything worked out fine.
Were you in college when you joined?
Yes, I was at Clemson. I completed 2 years of college. And in 1940, while there was an ad on the radio that they would accept for flight training if you had 2 years of college. So I applied and was accepted. And I started training in February of 1941.
Were you concerned? I mean, the whole world was at war, except for the whole world was at war in 1941, just about. And did you have any apprehension about joining the military and flying?
No, none at all.
None at all.
Clemson was a military academy, college, and I knew I didn't want to be in the infantry. And flying came along, and that's what I wanted to do.
All right, I can understand not wanting to be in the infantry. Did you join the Army Air Corps?
Army Air Corps. Right.
Okay, so you were there before the Air Force came into being.
Oh yes, Air Force didn't happen until 47.
Yeah. Right. What rank were you when you started? What rank were you when you started flying?
Second lieutenant.
Second lieutenant. Okay. That's when you entered flight school as a second lieutenant, or you
No.
came out of flight school?
Came out of flight school in September of 1941.
September 1941. So flight school was about 6 months long?
About 9 months.
9 months. Okay. So when you joined, you went straight from enlisting directly to flight school?
Right, correct.
Okay. All right, I understand. What plane did you initially train on when you started flying?
We had a PT-17, which was a Steelman or biplane, and no radio. Just it, basic airplane.
Basic airplane, no radio. One seater, or was it a tandem seat?
A tandem seat.
Did you, other than the instructor pilot, who else flew in that back seat with you?
Nobody.
Nobody. How did you communicate?
We had what is called a Gosport, and you put a kind of headset on, and the instructor could speak in a handheld device.
Like a tin cup and a string.
And it came through okay. And if he wanted to get your attention, well, he just stuck that out in the wind and he'd wake you up.
Did they ever chop the throttle on you by surprise? When you're flying along, did he ever cut the throttle on you?
Oh, yes. Yes, that was one of the, we had to pass it. Emergency landing procedure. On my check ride, well, I knew he was going to give me a forced landing, and he told me to get set up. And I did, and I flew a good way, so I found me a good spot. And then he wanted to know why. And I told him I wanted a good spot that I could make it. So I did.
Yeah, it helps to have those spots picked out, doesn't it?
Oh, yes.
Did you transition from that aircraft into another aircraft before you went to war?
At that time, flight training was in basic, primary, basic, and advanced.
Yeah.
Went from basic to went from primary to basic, and they flew a BT 15 or 17. It was a all metal, fabric covered airplane, and it had a fixed landing gear and a 2-speed prop.
You could control it from inside the cockpit?
Yes. So you took off in a low angle, and then after you get up to cruising altitude, while you change it to a cruising setting on the prop.
Did you have to adjust the mixture on your fuel from lean to rich or anything?
No, I don't know that model, no.
How about when you adjusted the pitch on the prop, did you have to reduce your RPM?
You would pull back on the throttle and change the pitch, and then come back on the throttle.
Come back on the throttle. And that was single engine?
Single engine.
Did you transition into a twin engine while you were in flight school?
No, not until 44.
Okay.
I did all my training in single engine fighter airplanes. I got first off I was assigned to Mitchell Field, Long Island, New York, and we flew the P-40s, and for some reason or other the things were all goofed up. They were just finishing up on the Louisiana maneuvers, and the Air Force had airplanes scattered all over in various stages of repair. So we had P-40s, and then next week they gave us a P-39, and then went back to P-40s. In Hawaii, I arrived in Hawaii 2 weeks after Pearl Harbor. And apparently they stripped all the P-40s out of the West Coast and shipped them to Hawaii because we had P-40s. And the island had enough P-36s, which was a radial engine, built by Curtiss. And for a while we had the P-36s, and then we moved back to the P-40s again.
Which was the best plane?
Well, the P-40 was the standard.
Yeah. When did you first have a radio that you had to call a tower or something like that to land?
I don't recall using the radio to contact the tower until advanced flying school.
And you still had no instruments other than engine?
Well, we had the basic instrument, needle ball, airspeed, which everybody learned on and used that all my career, I guess.
Altimeter?
Altimeter.
Do you have an attitude indicator? No? Good. No, okay. So you never flew in the clouds, I bet, intentionally?
Well, not except when you flew it goofing around.
Did you leave Hawaii and go to the European theater or to the Pacific theater?
No, I went from Hawaii in August of 1942. They had made the initial landings in Guadalcanal,
Yeah.
in Solomon, and I moved out, and I was based in Fiji, where At that point, this squadron there had P-39. So P-39 is the rest of the war in the Pacific.
Did you ever encounter a Japanese aircraft on a mission?
Had one occasion, I missed my chance.
You missed your chance. He didn't miss his. Did he miss his chance?
Yes.
So he didn't get shut down. He wasn't shut down, and neither were you.
That's correct.
Okay. So what were you? What were your targets mostly?
Mostly ground support, and also just area support, I guess you would say.
Yeah. Wherever there was a need.
Top cover.
Yeah. Did you fly top cover for bombers, other bombers, or what?
On a couple of 3 missions, yes. B-26s had a couple of missions that we went on. Otherwise, you were top cover for the ground force.
Did you were you supporting Marine Corps ground or mostly Army ground or both?
Both.
Both.
Mm-hmm. The Marines first, and then they pulled out and the Army came in. So we supported them.
Okay. Did you lose any close friends during the war?
Yes. Out of our class of 950, why, about 300 were lost during the war.
Man, that's a lot. Do you have class reunions?
Yes, we had as far as I know, the last one last year.
Okay.
And there were 2 of us old characters still around.
Out of the 900?
Well, that still come
Oh.
to the meetings, yes. And just got a notice today that there might be an informal meeting of a flying class in August, so I don't know whether I'll go or not.
Where do they hold the meeting?
Well, this one will be in Chattanooga.
Chattanooga. Well, if it's only one other person that attends, it'd be a small meeting, wouldn't it? How many attend?
Well, we had about 30, but about 10 years ago, we got down and we invited the families to come.
Okay.
So at the last one in Fort Walton Beach last September, why we had about 30 people there. And like I said, only 2 of us old characters still around.
What was your unit that you flew in the Pacific Theater?
I think it was the 70th Pursuit Squadron.
70th Pursuit Squadron?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did you, where did you finish the war? Where were you when the war was?
After I came home in December of 43, it had been over 2 years, and came back and then instructed in P-47 on the East Coast, Virginia, North Carolina, till the war ended.
How about out of the 70th Pursuit Squadron, did you lose any friends that were shot down out of that squadron?
No, none were shot down. One was in a ground accident and died.
As a result of the accident?
Yes.
What were the circumstances that allowed you to come out of the war theater back into doing flight training? You had so many missions, so many hours, or what?
I had 76 hours of combat, 76 mission, and also the number of points.
And how did you acquire a point?
By being in the area for a period of time.
Okay. And how many points did you have to have before you rotated back to a different kind of a flying job?
That I don't know, I had enough.
You had enough. You had all that you needed.
Yeah.
So you had 76 missions and 76 hours of combat flying?
Yes.
Okay. And that was the part of the criteria of rotating back was So many missions, 75 missions or something like that.
Well, no, not missions. They wasn't counting them
It was
as far
hours.
as I knew back then.
It was,
But the time on the ground of flying.
okay. So it was the hours of that combat flying that you did.
Yeah.
So you came back in 43 and was a flight instructor. What aircraft were you instructing in?
In the P-47.
P-47. Did you ever get to fly the P-51?
After the war was over, I was assigned to headquarters, and we had a couple of P-51s assigned.
Yeah.
And I got to check out and flew some, but didn't have anybody to go with me, and it wasn't much fun flying off by yourself.
I like flying by myself, but I'd rather fly with my wife, and so I agree with you. It's much more enjoyable when you can share it with somebody else.
Sure.
But flying a P-51 had to be a rush. It had to be a really incredible experience.
Great.
It was, yeah. Were you ever fearful while you were flying? Were you ever afraid that today it doesn't, man, it's, the intelligence briefing you got or something said this could be a really bad day with a lot of Japanese aircraft around?
No, not that I recall. I had one close call, came back in after being out top cover for about 4 hours, and they had a rain squall over the field on Guadalcanal. And I dropped down so I could see the coastline to try to find the strip. And I went in a cove, and I pulled up and got out okay. Had two wingmen that lost their way, and they crash landed on Guadalcanal.
They survived?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Did you receive any awards or medals for your combat action?
They awarded air medals and DFC on the number of mission. I got 7 or 8 air medals and a DFC, Distinguished Flying Crew.
Did your faith, were you a Christian when you went into the military?
Bob, I was raised in the Presbyterian church, and I thought I was a Christian,
Yeah.
and I prayed, and my faith brought me through.
Did you have any days where you felt like you needed your faith more than other days?
No, I don't believe so.
I can remember praying myself, just let me get through this day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you, what do you think about the young people in this country today and their views of patriotism and military service particularly?
Well, it stirs me. The students demonstrating against the speakers that the college has, that the university has invited in. And I just wonder how many of them are on a student loan. And if they were, I'd snatch it the next day.
Why?
Because everybody, you claim we're an open society and we got all kind of ideas. And for one idea to come through and say ours is the only it, and you can't speak today because we don't want you. We don't want your idea.
Yeah. Okay. When did you leave the military?
I left the military after 20 years, 1961.
What rank were you?
Lieutenant Colonel.
Lieutenant Colonel. So you retired from the military.
Yes.
By then, did you retire from the Army or the Air Force?
Yep. Well, we got renamed in 47
Right.
on the Air Force. So I retired from the Air Force.
So okay. So you retired from the Air Force, and when I went to flight school, my instructors were all World War II veterans that flew one aircraft or another, and they were flying helicopters at the time. So I had a flight instructor that was a helicopter flight instructor that was had been a flight instructor in a single-engine aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
Did you do any flight instruction after you left the military?
No. No, I went to college. I was within 6 months of graduating from college.
Okay.
And I came back, and that was my immediate goal. And I didn't want to fly civilians. I thought, well, gee, how boring it would be to fly from Nashville to New York and spend a couple of hours and then fly from New York back to Nashville. And I couldn't get in it. Didn't anticipate any joy in that, so I did not.
Were you married while in the Air Force?
I was married, yes. I married in 1950, and in '54 I was assigned to ROTC duty at Auburn. Well, at that time it was Alabama Polytechnic Institute, API, and they changed the name while I was there to Auburn University. I stayed there 4 years, and then I spent 3 years in France in a headquarters assignment.
This is while you were still in the Air Force.
Yes, yes.
Do you have any? Do you have any issues? Not issue, maybe at the wrong word. When you were at Auburn and when you went to France, finding a church or finding a place or a way to worship?
No, at Auburn I joined the Presbyterian Church and was active there, and then went to France, and the base had a chapel service on location, which we attended.
Okay. So what role did your faith play after you retired from the Air Force? What role did your faith play in the rest of your life?
Well, let's see, I really became a Christian in 1947, and was back in that time I was a Methodist, and they had missions that they went on, and I was one of the teams there.
So you started off pretty early doing mission work and found yourself as a Southern Baptist, and that's all we're about, just about doing missions, isn't it?
Well, after I retired, we wanted to travel, and we wanted to be worthwhile. So we joined up with an outfit that furnished labor for church camps. And the ladies didn't have to work, but if they wanted to paint or whatever small jobs they were capable of doing, they could. So Sue and I had 16 good years doing that on a volunteer basis.
Did your wife ever fly with you?
We had a couple of flights, yes.
How did that go?
It went well,
She enjoyed flying with you?
yes.
Yeah. It's neat to be able to take your wife up for a flight.
Yep.
When you finished flying, how many hours did you have total?
I had a little more than 4,000.
4,000 hours. That's good.
Most of it was single engine, so you were the pilot, radio operator, gunner, navigator, you name it.
Did you, given the aircraft you flew, you probably didn't drop any bombs, did you?
We dropped some bombs in the Solomons, yes.
One, how many bombs could you carry? One?
One.
Yeah, that's what I thought. You didn't have enough, you couldn't carry enough fuel to go very far and carry one bomb.
No, it was close in.
Do you ever see the explosion hitting the target you were after?
I tell you, the jungle in the Solomon Islands was thick, and the bombs would go down, and that was it. You didn't see what went on.
Yeah, I've been there and done that.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting, Charlie. Did you ever have anyone come up to you while you were in the military and ask you about your faith?
No.
Okay. Did the Air Force have, or the Air Force then, aren't still the Army Air Corps, did they have chaplains where you were?
Yes. We had a chaplain assigned to the quadrant, and we had services at least once a week at the base location.
And the 4,000 hours that you flew, when were you the most scared?
Well, in training, after I checked out in the P-40, we were doing some training off of the Republic field on Long Island on a hazy day. And I got disoriented. And it was clear enough, so I found a airfield, and I called in the control tower and asked him how would I get from where I was to where I wanted to be, and he couldn't tell me. So I landed and found out what I needed to know, and I took off, and apparently it was a short field, but anyway, I made it over the trees at the end of the runway, and got back in okay.
That was the scariest that you were. I've been in hazy weather. Hazy weather is no fun.
Yeah, true.
It's no fun. Did you have a silent prayer conversation with God during that time?
I don't recall that I did, no.
Okay. Charlie, this has been a delight for me. Sometimes I think if I could look back when I was in the military, particularly during combat, and if I had kept a daily diary. Did you keep any kind of a diary? I wish that I had.
No, I had a camera, and with old film and all. And I don't know, the heat and the humidity, when I went to turn the film in, while the emulsion came off of the backing. So I got no pictures from that period of my life.
Do you go to, where do you get your health care now? Do you go to a VA hospital, or you go to?
No, at the end of the Vietnam War, they pulled the retired folks out of going to the military hospital on the base. And of course, by then I'd signed up for Medicare, and I have Medicare plus TRICARE for life, and that takes care of my medical.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. Sure, it's been a delight. Do you have anything else that you'd like to share about when you left the Air Force? When you retired from the Air Force, where were you located?
I was at Shaw Air Force Base, South Carolina.
Okay, and so you didn't have very far to go home.
No, about 50 miles.
So you left the Air Force, retired from the Air Force, and went home. Did you have another civilian job besides the volunteer work that you all did?
No, and I went back to college, got my degree in industrial education. And I taught industrial arts in junior high for 10 years. At mechanical drawing, a little bit of metal, heavy on woodwork, and electricity. And then Sue inherited her father's farm in Alabama. And we were able to get her two sisters sold their interest to us. And so we settled in Alabama. And after 2 years, it went broke. And I got a job in the local county teaching driver's ed. So I was a driver's ed teacher for 10 years.
I'm going to have to ask you, were you more scared teaching driver's education than you were teaching a new student how to fly?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Okay. So you were living in Alabama. How did you get to Tennessee?
My wife died, and I went back with the volunteer group, but by then I'd gotten older, and it wasn't fun. So my daughter had moved to Tennessee from Oregon, and she and her husband took me in. I've been here 6+ years now.
6+ years. How did you find our church?
Hey, what?
How did you find our church?
I was recommended by Anne Frank's daughter that they had a church that believed in the old way of doing things and had a songbook and not a TV screen. And I came and I liked it.
You've been here
So
ever
I joined
since. Been here ever since. God bless you, Charlie. When you started flight school, did you have any how did you envision your time flying to go? How did you figure out that just surviving, if I could just survive my time in the Army or the Army Air Corps, that would be good, or did you even think about it that way?
No, I don't guess so. I just was looking forward to flying, and that was it.
That was it. You've had a beautiful life, Charlie.
Yeah.
You've had a blessed and a beautiful life. Thank you for talking to us and sharing your life story with us. It's really been interesting. I do have one final question. What caused you to have an interest in flying to start with? When did you first, when you were a kid, did you see an airplane flying somewhere or another and you'd say, boy, I would really like to do that someday?
Sure. Whenever you hit an airplane, which is maybe once a week or once in 10 days, well, you always came out to look at it.
Okay. And when did you actually take your very first flight? Were you ever up in an airplane before you joined the military and went to flight school?
Yes. In 1948, I guess it was, the Army Air Corps was trying to get folks interested in flying, and they put in a program at the college that you could get a flight license, a pilot's license. They had a ground school at the college, and then they furnished a Piper Cub, and we flew that, and I got about 30 hours, I think.
In a Piper Cub?
Mm-hmm.
You know that Piper now makes, or there's a company that makes, the plane is called a Carbon Cub. And it's a Piper Cub on steroids. And it still has a fabric cover.
Yeah.
But it's much stronger engine, and it's still tandem seat, 2 seat, one in the front and one in the back. Did you ever have an instrument ticket, a standard instrument ticket in the Air Force?
Yeah.
Okay.
You had to have an instrument. After you got so many hours, watch the flight instruments, you had to have, had to qualify flying. And then I was in two-engine stuff, either C-47s or B-26s. And after you got so many hours and time where you got a, what they call a command pilot, and with a green card, you could sign your own flight.
Okay. Well, it's been a delight for me personally to talk to you. It's been a privilege just to listen to your story and listen to you share your experiences in the military.
Thank you.
I want to thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your service.